An unexpected question from someone special after a decade's search melted this war hero's heart. We've outstretched ourselves in all the corners of this world. Reaching to the farthest areas doesn't seem like a big deal anymore, especially when we can connect with people from different continents. Yet finding someone in particular about whom we know nothing at all is almost impossible, but a guy beats all the odds this time. People tend to forget happy moments and lose faith as quickly as a wink. However, those who have learned to appreciate the joy in the smaller things will relate to this story's ups and downs. Happiness comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors. We just need to realize it. Love is all around us, even in the darkest of moments. We just need to feel it. The first thing that struck our minds after knowing this war hero's story was the lyrics from Rihanna's evergreen song, "We Found Love in a Hopeless Place." Once you'll know more about him, you'll think the same. Master Sergeant Mike Maroney was given orders to save lives when Hurricane Katrina hit the US. Sergeant Maroney was saving lives unknown to what was awaiting him. This hurricane changed many lives around the US, and Maroney's one of those people. But did this change prove to be good or bad for him? We'll only know with time. Hurricane Katrina has been harsh on the US. This natural disaster was nothing less than a nightmare. Many circumstances and events became the reason for an overall change of landscape in the Gulf Coast. It affected a vast number of families, destroying cities as it reached further into the country. Maroney was assigned work to be done, and one family trapped in their home during this phase of national emergency were about to play a big role for the sergeant, bigger than anyone's imagination. On August 25, 2005, when Hurricane Katrina reached the coast of Florida, it was measured as a Category 1 storm. The then Governor Jeb Bush announced emergency, and the very next day the hurricane was becoming more dangerous, that within a day was declared a Category 2. Even the governor of Louisiana, Kathleen Blanco, informed about the state of emergency. The White House started to help from its end by sending National Guard troops to the affected areas. Sadly, it was in anyone's hand to stop the possible harm. On August 27, 2005, 2 days after Hurricane Katrina hit the Florida coast, New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin declared an optional evacuation for the metro area residents. While the danger of the hurricane was underestimated by everyone, by the next morning the hurricane was in its giant form. The winds were blowing at a speed of 160 miles per hour, and it was now a Category 5 hurricane at 7 a.m. The situations were worst for all the families stuck in the storm. Sergeant Maroney was about to encounter one such family during those days. Looking at the hurricane reaching the roads in residential areas but not even close to slowing down, within the next few hours, Mayor Ray Nagin declared mandatory evacuation for the people of New Orleans. As it was practically impossible for all residents to leave the town at the same time, the mayor announced a football stadium as the place where the residents could stay safe. It was the Superdome, where more than 25,000 people found shelter, yet not everyone was safe. They weren't able to make the Superdome, and they were waiting for help to reach them. The mandatory evacuation orders came late enough that it wasn't possible for this huge a population to evacuate so soon. When more than 1/5 of the city population lacked personal means of transport such as cars and bikes and such, were forced to wait for help. Pararescue specialist Maroney with his team was working day and night to rescue these people. He was not giving up on any single person he saw while on the chopper. While he didn't remember all the people he rescued, one face from this rescue mission was about to become an important part of his life. The storm was over, but not the disaster. More than 80% of the city sunk in water as high as 20 feet. The roads were filled with broken trees and floating cars. When George Bush, the then US president, announced emergency disaster, the public outraged due to the massive loss that was caused. Due to the delayed action of authorities, the crowd was angry and protesting. In the middle of the violence, officers were sent to help the residents and control the violence. That's how Sergeant Maroney ended up in New Orleans with his troops, with the purpose of saving as many lives as they can and prevent them from the increasing violence. While patrolling from the military helicopter, a family that stayed back in their home at the time of the disaster was located by Sergeant Maroney and his team. Looking at the military forces, the family started to make all the attempts they could to bring the soldiers' attention to them. Their home was covered with water, all the food at home was already consumed. These soldiers seemed like their only hope at that moment. Maroney saved more than 140 people during that day. though he wasn't sent for this purpose and hence he was somewhere ignoring the orders that he got from his seniors in the first place. Yet, taking these people out of their floor-ridden homes was his ethical responsibility. Little did the sergeant know this day will have the biggest impact on his life. Maroney and his troop rescued this family out of their flooded home. Once they landed and the family was now safe, the small girl he just helped in the helicopter walked towards the sergeant. With an enthusiastic smile on her face, she hugged Maroney as a thank you gesture. At that moment, life stopped for Maroney. Never before had he felt this strength of love, and none of us could understand how he felt at the very point unless we've been in his place. This one moment was about to keep Maroney moving through much more severe circumstances. Just like all of us, Maroney had been through emotional moments before in his life. However, this girl was unusual. She wasn't afraid like the rest of the people around her. In the time of devastation, she behaved maturely enough to not only just stay calm on her end, but also make Maroney feel better about his job and the good work he was doing for the residents. You'll know this girl's reactions were entirely moving from the rest of Maroney's words. Years passed by, but Maroney didn't forget to recall the little girl in an interview with the Air Force Times. He told them that the helicopter had this girl, her family, and the soldiers when the girl pointed at her home and the school that were flood-ridden. Obviously, no one expects kids to be completely fine with flying in a helicopter, knowing it's a new type of ride for them. Some moments last forever, and this big hug was nothing less than hope for the sergeant. Maroney was in a habit of keeping a journal to keep track of everything he's achieved or lost in life, and even the smallest happy or stressing moments. During the interview, he read his words from the day this angelic girl hugged him. The words were, "Picked up the cutest little girl today, gave me the biggest hug, and I melted." The amazing part isn't over yet, as the day had much more significance than the sergeant actually thought. Maroney once said in an interview, "For me, that picture is her smile, and the embrace she gave me was enough to refill my tank, and we went back out and began picking up more people. On that day, it was exactly what I needed." What a great day it would have been. The point was that Maroney didn't even know this girl's name. A complete week went by in rescuing people from different affected places. Patrolling above the flooded water without any breaks was too much to take. Seeing such a terrible condition of New Orleans was too depressing for him, but as he said in an interview, "It had been such a rough week. When she wrapped me up in that hug, I was in La La Land. Nothing else existed. I was just loving that hug." What were the odds? The moment this little girl happily hugged Maroney, a press photographer was not only present, but he managed to take a picture at the perfect time. The photograph became a famous symbol of military help received by the people, as it was published in leading magazines across the globe. Whether it be the photograph or the girl's innocent smile, something about this picture won people's hearts. Not just that, this picture won hearts, but it even won awards to the photographer. None of them knew each other, yet once the hurricane was over, their photo represented the rescue effort. The photographer handed over a copy of the picture to Maroney, and right after that, the picture was cemented on the military coins too. Burger King placemats and AT&T phone cards had their picture too. It was 10 years later that this picture appeared on the cover page of People's American Heroes Collector's Edition. Over the years, Maroney kept the picture close to him during his tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. After returning from the war zone, the sergeant was suffering from PTSD, a common disorder that many soldiers who've been to war or seen violence suffer for at least once in their lives. Maroney found hope from this photo, and he was able to relate to that girl's positive emotions. Many times he used to thank her in silence for giving him such a warm memory. It started 5 years after the hug. Maroney wanted to meet the girl who took him through the roughest of moments. And in the search of this girl, the sergeant posted on social media websites about his story, hoping he might find her. Sadly, social media didn't help every time, and hence his attempt failed with just 42 likes. He even tweeted on Oprah but didn't receive any replies. Although Maroney's initial attempts failed, he still tried again and again. He kept on posting later and many times, but again, nothing really seemed to be working. When social media platforms proved no help to Maroney, a team named Andrew Gord was very moved by the military, especially the pararescue specialists like Maroney. He started a page in order to raise more awareness about the work they do. This page had more than 3,000 followers. When Andrew got to know about this post, he shared it on his Instagram page. Yet Maroney didn't meet the girl, and now he was doubtful if there were chances she'd ever notice the post. The girl didn't show up even after the post was shared by Andrew on his page. Apparently, the Air Force Times heard of Maroney's story and all the campaign he initiated. They published an article about Maroney's search for the little girl, and luckily this time, the post went viral. 10 years after the incident, Maroney's attempts were now known by many. Andrew took the viral news a step ahead by adding a hashtag #FindKatrinaGirl. When a TV show producer saw the story of this soldier, they started looking for the Katrina girl. The cast of a TV show named The Real found out the girl and they called Maroney for the meeting that has been fixed on The Real sets. The Real is a kind of awareness show where a group of women come together to discuss several topics and life experiences. Maroney's story made the producers emotional, and they wanted this to help them raise their show's ratings. Hence, once they found the Katrina girl, both Maroney and the girl were invited to the show meet. When the hurricane hit her home, she was just 3 years old. Now, 10 years later, nobody knew what she looked like, but thanks to the social media and the producers' efforts, she was there on the show waiting to meet Maroney. The girl was now 13 years old and recently started high school. She lived in Mississippi and her name was Lachey Brown. After a decade from when Maroney first started to look for the girl, he was overwhelmed to hear from the producers of The Real that he could soon meet her. He wasn't only fascinated by the TV staff but stunned for a moment that he was finally going to see her again. Maroney said in an interview, "I can't wait to meet her to tell her how important she is." Lachey was a toddler when the picture was taken and she didn't even remember the moment that changed Maroney's life, but her mother did remember everything. She was amused by the fact that all this time when she wasn't aware of it, Sergeant Maroney was looking for her. Lachey said in an interview, "I was excited he was looking for me for such a long time. I've barely seen any of the pictures." In September 2015, Lachey Brown and Mike Maroney were on the set of The Real on time. While Lachey waited inside for her name to be called to appear in front of the camera, Mike explained how one hug kept him strong and comforted him in the darkest hours of his life. He shared the thought that popped up to his mind as, "If she's strong enough to handle this, I can handle this." The host sharing the whole story with the audience asked Maroney a few questions before the reunion could actually happen. They told Maroney he wasn't aware that a photographer was taking their picture at the moment Lachey hugged him. Maybe that's why the reaction of both their faces was so realistic. Once the host called Lachey on stage, everyone's eyes were on her and Maroney. It was Lachey's first time in front of these cameras, all focusing on her. The girl is now grown up. She met the two hosts at first, hugged them, and then she walked towards Maroney. This was the moment Maroney waited for so long. Lachey's a different kind of girl, and she proved that she's still the same by asking Maroney an incredible question. At last, Sergeant Maroney got an opportunity to thank the young girl. Maroney was emotional at the moment he saw Lachey and told her, "Your hug, it helped me through hard days and rough days. You rescued me more than I rescued you." He couldn't express his feelings in words that moment. Maroney and Lachey reunited and hugged each other, and both were unable to hold back their tears. The sergeant later said in an interview, "If not for her hug and her smile on that day, my life would probably be a lot different." Hence, he was so grateful to the producers of the show to help him meet her, and this meant so much to him. Lachey's mother, Chantrell Brown, said in an interview, "I was crying because I was scared." She recalls that it was the first time she was ever in a helicopter and scared. Lachey stayed silent and comfortable even in the helicopter. Maroney and Chantrell both said the same thing about Lachey, that the girl wasn't frightened at all. Chantrell, who had 5 children with her, recalled the moment in an interview. "The helicopter had opened doors, so I looked out and you could see all the water over everything, and it was just too much for me, so Lachey was comforting me." She was horrified by the thought of anything going wrong with her children. In an interview, Chantrell further said, "I already known she was special from that day, but when I heard him say that on the show, he was saying she was his hero after everything he'd done. Until he said that about Lachey and her smile and hug, I never knew that could mean so much to a person. Indeed, there was something amazing about this girl." Maroney waited for this moment from the time he was first handed the picture. Finally, the day arrived and he felt like he was on 7th heaven. He dreamt of the day for a long time and added, "Finding you guys and knowing you're okay has been a weight off my back." He met the whole Brown family and was relieved to see that they were doing fine after the disaster. Maroney always wished that whenever he met the Brown family, he could gift them with something as a favor that they did to him unknowingly. The show producers presented a check for $10,000 and a car, but she said no to the offer as she knew it was Maroney who actually deserved it. Maroney and Lachey's bonding wasn't just for the show, but Maroney went on to meet the Brown family in Mississippi with his 2 sons. Chantrell denied the car and used the money to give Lachey an iPhone that she wanted for a long time. On the other hand, Maroney used the money to clear off his debts. Although the first thing that Maroney purchased from his money was a chocolate milkshake for his little girl who loves ice cream. The reel helped the two of them reunite. Lachey and Maroney decided to stay in touch after the show as well. After the show was filmed, Maroney told in an interview, "We've already been texting, checking in on each other and talking quite a bit." Maroney used to visit them and became friendly with the Brown family. Apparently, he even taught Lachey to swim. Both of them were now becoming close friends who keep each other updated with all the present happenings in their lives. Maroney even received an honorary citizenship from Waveland Mayor Mike Smith. After appearing on the TV show, the duo of Maroney and Lachey became quite popular, and Lachey's mother said in an interview, "Lachey's famous. Everyone's been coming up to us every day asking us about it." Unlike her mother, Lachey wasn't excited about all the publicity and said, "Yeah, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to run bleachers when I go back to school because I miss practice." Lachey was strongly influenced by Maroney's views on the military, and she wanted to be a part of it. She attended the Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, popularly known as the JROTC, an initial level training with the aim to teach students in secondary education institutions the values of citizenship, service to the United States, and personal responsibility and a sense of accomplishment. She attended the training day at Bay High School in Waveland, Mississippi. Lachey later explained in an interview about the reason for her selecting JROTC, as it was very interesting and a challenge, and because I'd never done it before. I knew if I joined, I'd have help from Mike along the way if I needed it, or was confused about anything. Mike was staying in touch with Lachey regularly and was amazed to know her new phase of life is soon beginning. Lachey asked Maroney a question that he never expected. She invited him to the JROTC ball with her. Maroney without hesitation said yes, and he later explained the reason as, "I'm going because I would do anything to repay the hug to Lachey and her family. They mean as much to me as my own." The location was at a Mississippi community center on a Saturday night in March 2017. While Maroney was totally unknown to the teenagers around him in the party, Lachey was in the same situation. She hardly knew anyone else in the party, and hence the two spent quality time dancing and enjoying it. Maroney especially arrived from Texas to Mississippi for the ball night, as he understood what a ball night means to a teenage girl. Other than staying with Lachey in the party, Maroney was also asked about his experience during the rescue operation after Hurricane Katrina. Maroney shared his feelings in front of the crowd and said, "Lachey just survived one of the most massive hurricanes in American history. If she's smiling, I can smile too." Many press reporters were present at the ball night to capture this amazing moment. The two talked with a local TV station and NBC affiliate WXXV. "He means a lot to me. He's more like a family member than a friend." Lachey expressed her feelings. Maroney explained the value of Lachey in his life as, "If she needed a heart or a lung, I'd give it to her. That's how important her hug and her family is to me." Lachey wishes to join the military just like Maroney. She hasn't decided on the field she'd like to go for though. Maroney said, "I'm proud of her no matter what she does and will support her in everything. I think she understands service and I believe she'll do great things no matter what she chooses." Besides Lachey, Maroney helped many other people. Maroney had to retire early from the Air Force because of an injury. He still trains people who want to join the military. He says, "Life in service to the planet is important, whether serving in the military or as a teacher, nurse, or volunteer. Service makes life that much more appreciated." Mike Maroney says that Lachey played an important role in his life. He said, "I've rescued a lot of people, but there have also been a lot of people I couldn't rescue. Life sometimes gets dark, knowing there are good people who love life and are happy. The resiliency that she had has been a strength for me." Not everyone gets the privilege of health, wealth, and the rest of the reasons to be happy, but every one of us gets at least one such moment that if we could seize in our memories would help us to move forward in life with much more strength and courage. We'd love to hear about your such moments.